have a new architectural supervisor who started February 8th. His name is Tom Kirkham. He is a member of Holley by the Sea, and he is here tonight. We do have some upcoming projects. They're going to be, I think, fairly big, and I know that Deanna and I have reviewed them, but it's going to be, it would probably be a 2 or 3 day process, but we're going to be redoing this cafe area and meeting room area. I know there have been some questions about replacing the meeting chairs. That is definitely on the items to get replaced and to update for everyone. So that should be coming up in the near 2 to 3 months down the road. The beach house, during our renovations that are starting February 15th on the parking lot project and the jogging show project that we have going on, we've reached out to look at all the reservations we have: campground reservations, RV reservations, beach house reservations, and we have stopped taking additional reservations. So the existing ones will stand, but because we didn't want to have 150 people have to come through during construction, we stopped booking those. During that time, we're going to use that to repaint the beach house and do some upgrades that are needed out in those places that are usually booked with reservations. The youth program for summer camp information will be coming soon. We decided that we would look at that as well. We did a market analysis and pulled costs from other programs, YMCAs and stuff, to see if we were fair, if we were too high, if we were too low for our families that use that. So that'll be coming out as well. The fishing pier, if you haven't been down there to look, is actually right in the middle of construction. They're halfway through with completing the job, and it is slated to be completed by the first week of March. So I think we'll be good with that date. Okay.
Questions? All right, officer reports. Just to review some of the dates, this Thursday at 6 p.m., Sean Ward from the Transportation Planning Department will be speaking about the Navarre Community Access Road. It's in its beginning stages right now, but there have been some questions, so I asked that he come and address the board, and I asked that he do it on Thursday because typically the Tuesday meetings are longer with discussions and Thursdays are shorter, so I figured that would allow him more time. He'll have a presentation. If anyone has any questions that they want to ask prior, you can email them to me and I will forward them to him so he's aware of the questions prior to the meeting. But he will be here at 6. There's a lot of questions regarding the Navarre Community Access Road. So I would encourage everyone to attend or talk to your neighbors if they have any questions. That would be the time to come. So that's this Thursday at 6. February 13th is Saturday from 10 to 1. Skip Orth, the local lawn care business owner, is going to be providing a free lawn care workshop. So it's open to all Holley by the Sea members. So please, if you want to know how to take care of your lawn, now would be the time to come. On February 27th, there's the Stormwater Town Hall meeting with various representatives from the county and also a representative from Baskerville and Donovan who will come and present the study. I've sent emails out with a link to the study, which I thank Sandy Kemp for doing that because the county, she had uploaded it for us. We also printed 2 copies. One copy is in the architectural office and the other is in the front desk, so if you wanted to look at the hard copy. Again, that's at 9 a.m. on February 27th. We are holding it on a Saturday with the hopes that more people will be able to come. If there's any questions that you have after reading the study, you're more than welcome to email those to the board, compiling those and sending them to the appropriate staff members so they will also have those answers prior to the meeting. There's been some discussion regarding suspending new development, and I just wanted to stress, if anyone thinks that we have the authority to do that, per state law, this board does not have the authority to suspend temporarily or otherwise new development. The county can choose to do so for a very specific period of time, for a very specific reason, but anything longer than a year would be considered in an ordinate burden, and that's the Burt J. Harris Act, if anybody wants to look that up. But we as a board do not have the authority to suspend development. We don't issue building permits. We have the authority to determine what type of home is built on the lot and architectural issues and those, but we can't say to a homeowner, you can't build on your lot, or to a lot owner that they can't build. And that is all I have. Any questions?
We had the pre-construction meeting for the parking lot and those projects on Thursday, last Thursday. The contractor will probably be starting as early as Monday. First thing they'll do will be to stage their equipment behind the gate so it won't be tampered with. And what they will probably do is work their way from the south side back, because they have, they'll be rebuilding the jogging, walking trail and edging that. They'll be repairing that southernmost stormwater pond and armoring that. They'll be placing new gravel on the RV sites, and they're not going to want to haul all that gravel over new pavement. So that's the first thing that will occur. And then they'll end up paving the road to the beach house up to where we already have new pavement, and patching the 2 or 3 places on the maintenance road. Then they'll begin the parking lot, and they'll do it in stages. There's going to be some inconvenience to people, because the parking lot in the mornings is pretty filled up. And we're going to have to do it a section at a time, where they will mill it, remove that material, then they will lay the new asphalt and roll that out. Probably the last thing that they'll do will be the entrance road itself. And we haven't decided yet. We may have to do that on a Saturday and close that morning in order to do that. We'll have to work that out at a later date. But we're making progress on it, and it's going to start here pretty soon. We're fortunate that the base is the base for the parking lot is generally in pretty good condition, so they're not going to have to do a lot of work on that. And then, of course, I'll have to line it, stripe it, and all of that too. So there'll be some inconvenience, but if folks will bear with us, we'll get it done. That's all I have.
Yes.
Rod, in reference to the parking lots, once you take a parking lot out or an area out, is there any consideration for having that many parking spots available, say behind the fence, for those to park if they come in?
I don't know that we're going to want to open the gate, but it appears we'll probably at least have to let people park on the grass.
Okay.
Or something. Because we just won't be space. We'll just have to work that out kind of as it goes. But they'll probably do the smaller lots first, and then do the major lot in the 93 down there. But the entrance road will be last, because they don't want to haul asphalt over there. Other question?
Just to touch base on some of the stuff that we've been doing around here and get everybody up to speed on what's being spent. The steam room project that April had talked about with the regrout and the mold and all of that stuff cost us $180, which is not bad. But that got us back up to having everything rotted the way it should be, and hopefully it'll get rid of the mold and mildew problems that we've been having in there. On top of that, a pressure washer for the steam room and the sauna was purchased for $100, but that should also help keep it cleaner, and hopefully we won't have this reoccurring issue with the mold and the mildew. We also have, the GM office was just refurnished with a total cost of $1,300 altogether. That was for desk, paint, cabinets, chairs, to make sure that they had proper equipment in there. The upcoming lobby in cafe area, like April was speaking of, we're looking at purchasing about 60 chairs, and they're about $35 each. But they're going to be the really nice padded ones that are like church chairs, where they kind of interlock so they don't squeak all over the floor when people sit down. We're also looking at a new sofa and chair setup for in here, because the one we have is really dilapidated and falling apart. So we're looking for that, and we're also looking at the PA system that we have right now is pretty much shot, so they are in the process of searching and researching for a new one, and we're looking at $2,300 for that one. And then Tops, we're having to get another subscription as far as the architectural office needs one more for their work, so it's gonna cost about $100 a month to have it in there, and we might look at purchasing one additional one on top of that, just to make sure every office winds up with one subscription to Tops at least. So right now, that's kind of what we've been looking at and what's been going on behind the scenes up here. And if any questions, I'll try and answer the best I can, but our top system was down this morning, so I don't have the rest of our numbers for the month. I'll get them on Thursday.
Moving on to, thank you very much. Moving on to committee reports. And we have a pulled over committee.
Chris is here.
Chris?
I'm here.
Yeah, come on up.
It really, it's been kind of a slow start to getting things going. Doing a lot of history, looking at the expenses kind of going from 2011 forward, and been in touch with two of the other former members from that committee in 2011, looking at some of the challenges they faced, which are different from what we're facing this go around. This go around, we actually have more to consider with looking at heaters, water heaters, air heaters, fans. There's a lot more to it than what they seem to have faced in 2011. So really just trying to get the facts in order, and think we can look at the big picture and start drilling down. So it's been a bit of a slow start, but it certainly got started in the prior week.
Thank you.
Any other committees? All right, unfinished business. This was discussed during the architectural meeting, and it was carried over to tonight's meeting. It's the ACC policy for during construction, water runoff, and post-construction water runoff. So Bob will.
Alrighty. Bob Hutchison, ACC chairman. And forgive me, I'm a little hoarse. I was honoring for beads all day Saturday. So, we spent about half our time period last Tuesday talking about this particular issue in water in general. The consensus that we came up with, the motion that we unanimously voted on, was to go back, delete number 5 off the checklist, but with the caveat that our new supervisor now help us in getting the specific rules that we can cite to put back on here if that's what the board wishes to do. So, like I said, we spent most of the time talking about it. The committee members were more concerned about liability and the way this thing is written, and we wanted to do it right the first time rather than rush to failure, and give Tom the opportunity to plug in the exact specifics that we can cite back to the contractor or the state, as it may be.
The architectural board meeting is the 25th. Is that right? February 25th, last Thursday?
ACCBOD is the last Thursday of the month. Correct.
Would y'all be able to have something to present if we were to remove item 5, to insert the language back in there,
Yeah, I got a few
citing
phone calls
proper law?
on that issue, yeah. I had to wait till I got started here.
Yeah.
I went to that meeting that last Tuesday, and we discussed it in depth.
Well, what I was thinking, the motion I was thinking is to remove it, with the understanding that it will be placed back on there to be reviewed on the 25th with the appropriate citation, the appropriate wording and citation.
Yeah, right now you've got a large liability in this case, because what happens is if we go out and do an inspection and we make a documented statement one way or the other, and it's wrong, and it's wrong, then the association is going to be liable and could get sued.
And that has been the issue, because it's something that we require and then we sign off as it having been done. And then, someone comes back and it wasn't properly done, but yet we signed off on it, so I understand the
And
liability.
nobody right now has the training or actually the background to do that.
Well, the county does, at the last meeting, we learned that the county does come out and inspect for that, so I think it would be good to have the staff get with the county when they do those inspections to kind of have that training. But to this point here, my thinking is to remove it and then to bring it back, bring the clarified language back to the board on the 25th to vote.
Yeah, I'm gonna make some phone calls. I'm gonna call the county and talk to them about it too, because, if we go out and see something, because there's some basic things that we can look at when we see it. If we find it, my recommendation would be to call Kit Jones or Furman or somebody up there and say, hey, this is what we found, we need you to come out here and meet us here. Okay, and go from there.
I think there's a greater liability for not addressing it at all than there is to having that's been there all this time. This is my thing.
Well, no, we're not.
Well, we are for a period of time, not addressing it at all.
Yeah,
Well, we're gonna eventually address it.
Eventually, what about those permits that we get in the meantime, or those applications that we get in the meantime? Then they'll say, you didn't address that with me at all.
Well,
It still falls under the state and county rules and regulations.
Right.
But what we're trying to do is for Tom and his crew to be able to address the specifics of those and who has a responsibility to mitigate those issues. Right now, we're not sure who has a responsibility of what part of this. And so that's what we're trying to get on board with Tom through those regulations, is to cite that to the county to make the contractors do their job if it falls under their purview.
See, I've got a major lawsuit going on right now with my contractor on the same issue.
How many because this would be decided on the 11th, voted on. And so pending that vote, it would be 2 weeks until the 25th that you would bring the language back before the board so that we could vote on having the appropriate language. How many inspections do you foresee, like final inspections, in the next 2 weeks? I mean, I know you're relatively new with the numbers, but do you think that we could just possibly defer those until the 25th? Or how many new developments? Because if the final inspections, their paperwork when they came is going to have that on there.
Yeah.
So that's something, because that was given to them whenever they came to get the.
I'd have to get back with you on that. I don't know how many over the next 2 weeks are pending final inspection.
So it's really more the new applications that would be, so would the board be amenable to just placing a hold on new applications until this comes back before the board on the 25th? So that when the builder gets an application, that it's accurately stated what the requirement is for them for stormwater drainage? Because that would be 2 weeks from this Thursday. Because nothing will be decided tonight, so it would be decided on Thursday, and then it would come back to the board on the 25th.
Okay, I won't be here until
Bob, as far as Hidden Creek Estates is concerned, we don't have any finals that come during that period, just so. Hidden Creek Estates will not have any finals during that period, so it won't affect us, if that's what you're saying.
And so new applications, would Hidden Creek Estate be okay with, just from the 11th to the 25th, telling the developer we're working on some verbiage in the application?
Yeah, it won't be a problem for us.
Okay.
I don't wanna speak for them, but for us, it's not a problem.
Because right now it's new builds.
Correct. And last Tuesday, we signed off on about a half dozen, 5 or 6 new bills. And there's one in the box now that is still waiting for signatures.
Well, that would probably be signed before Thursday, so his wouldn't be affected.
Looking at the covenants, I think that if you look at the whole kind of consideration of the Architectural Control Committee, that the effort is to try and make the community be harmonious, where one house is like the next, or similar, or complementary, and not in contrast, cause an eyesore. Most of the verbiage in there is talking about, type of fences, everything is visual and not nuts and bolts as far as water runoff and what all that happens. So I don't have a problem with striking it because I think it's kind of outside the purview of the intention of Congress.
So you don't want it at all, not even to come back before the
No, I don't even know why we're going out and inspecting homes for any reason other than they submit plans, we look at the plans, when the house is done, does the house look like the plans? Have they deviated from those plans that they sent us and that we're agreeing to?
See, the county, I've got the documentation.
Because the county is responsible for everything else.
Right, I got documents in the office already, because I'm already going through this with my new building. It's been 2 years, it's been 18 months now, we've been dealing with the contract. But I've already got documents in the office, and my thing is, these documents come from the county. And they're handed supposedly to the contractors whenever they go ahead and pick up their engineering drawings. But this is what they've got to do. And it says right in there, it's even got a diagram and drawing. They haven't been following that. Okay, so really it's coming to come back on the county to say, how come you guys, when you go out to inspect this, you're not following up on what they're doing?
So then maybe the language should not reflect that this isn't a requirement from Holley by the Sea per se, but that the builder has to provide Holley by the Sea with the plans from the county or with the documents from the county, and prior to signing off on our final inspection, they have to present the signed off stormwater part from the county, that the county came out, inspected it, it's in accordance with their requirements. And so we're not inspecting the stormwater so much as we're saying, you have to provide this from the county, because the county's inspection would be before after we sign off. And then they have to provide that for us in order for us to sign off. Is that something that?
Well, they have.
My plan is to give a package to the new contractor, to the contractor when they come in. I'm gonna build this package, and they're gonna be handed a file folder with all of this information in it. It comes right from the county.
Yes.
And the Florida, Department of Florida, okay, on water runoff and everything. So if they turn around and they don't do what it says there, now we have to say so to go back to the county, okay, and say, hey, look, I know they're gonna sign for it. They're gonna sign for this package. Okay.
For us,
and then we've got, that leaves liability off of us.
yes, and we can't enforce county rules anyway.
That's correct.
But we can require that they provide us with the documents that the county, that they actually provided what the county requested as far as stormwater drainage, and that it was signed off on as having been complete at the end of the build. So it's not, we're not then relying on our own expertise so much as the county.
Right.
This is what I found looking at it, was that they do provide us with the certificate of occupancy. So we went back, me and Catherine, to ask them, well, what does that cover? Because they kept saying to us, well, if you have the certificate of occupancy, that covers all the checklists that the county, goes out. And I said, well, I want your checklist items.
Right,
I
that's
want
what
to see
we need
what's
to
on
have in the
there. And
doc.
that's what they're milling around, and I'm getting little emails back, but not an actual checklist that correlates with that certificate. So as soon as we get that, then we will have, since they're saying that this is where we're signing off with this occupancy certificate, well, what does that entail? So that's what we're trying to get from them right now.
From the county?
Yes.
Okay.
When they come to us for a new build, have they already gone to the county to get a permit?
Yes. They file their engineering drawings, everything with the county.
Do they give us a copy of any DEP permits that they might have required?
I have never seen anything in the folders the last 2 days I've been in here.
I will tell you that normally what we get is a plot plan. It shows the dimensions, it shows that it's a 35 or whatever, what setback, the easement size, etc. It shows where the septic tank is going to be. Sometimes we get more detailed drawings, so it actually shows the swells and it has little arrows pointing as to which way the water is supposed to flow. But again, that's, you know,
They're giving it, I think, a lot of the contractors, from what I'm seeing, and when I drive around over here in the east end, because I build a lot over there, and see what I'm seeing over there, a lot of houses are being built, and got swells on them, and they're new within the last 6 months, 4 months. So, they're not necessarily following what's going on. And I know a couple of them are gonna have some issues, so.
Well, I know there's rolling lots
Right.
right at the corner of, Kempton and Sherwood. They're quite obviously wetlands.
And there's
I
another.
don't know if they have DEP permits or not. I'm assuming that the county requires them.
I have one.
They already have a permit from the county when they come to us, is that correct?
yes. I'll double check that, but I'm almost sure.
It's just, this is a lot of things that have to, I have to put it in place, you know, timeline it, figure it out, and I'm working on that. Matter of fact, I'm using some of my own things that happened with me in this lawsuit I got going on to use going forward here.
Alright, so,
Is there a motion?
yes, I make a motion to remove item 5 as worded, to be replaced with language that requires builder provide the checklist when certificate of occupancy is issued prior to Holley by the Sea signing off to be brought back to the board on February 20th. Completed checklist.
Okay, we're talking about the pre-check or the,
No, first
The
it-
final.
when they issue a CO.
so we're not gonna do anything on the pre-side.
I second.
Well, we might find out also that we don't want to put anything in there by the time I get done with research.
You what now?
You may not even want to put anything in item 5. By the time I get done with the research, do the liability.
Well, what the motion was
Well,
is to.
we want our attorney to decide the liability factor.
Okay?
The motion, and Kevin seconded, was to remove item 5 as worded, to be replaced with language that requires the builder provide the checklist for the CO, the certificate of occupancy, prior to Holley by the Sea signing off. So that then would be in their application that, so item number 5 would state something, it's not verbatim, but provide Holley by the Sea with checklist provided by county, completed checklist from county upon issue of CO.
So we have no liability.
Right, yeah, but that's what I'm after, no liability whatsoever.
Alright,
So are we basically asking for a copy of the CO before we give our CO
Of
The checklist.
Of the inspection checklist.
the inspection checklist,
for each individual system?
yes, for each
For each
application.
individual building, yeah.
For each building, yes.
Something that's sticking in my head that they're required to leave that with the house.
Well, they can provide a
Government tax rate.
they can provide a copy though, they don't have to give us the original, we're not,
Yeah.
not the original, the copy.
And we're also looking for a step beyond that, was not just the CO. We want the checklist, what went into the
Yes,
CO.
yes, and that's what the motion was, is that completed checklist, because that's what they have to go, that's what they have to get before
Yes,
they
yes,
issue
you
that
can.
certificate. Alright, make the motion, move this to Thursday,
Second.
favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, moving on to new business, the revised usage policy. Rod and I, for the last regular board meeting, made changes to this policy. We reviewed it with the attorney. He made a few changes to ensure that we were in accordance with the law. We did speak with the attorney on Monday to ensure that we, the board, had the actual authority per the covenants to, change this policy or to enforce or, to adopt this policy. And he assured us that we did have the authority to do so. So in order to have discussion, I make a motion to approve the revised usage policy for common areas and recreational facilities.
What's that? Yes.
So essentially what this states, there's no, the first change was there's no expiration date. Right? I mean, now, a follow board could come and change it if they so desire. The Holley by the Sea Board of Directors adopts the policy, that allows Holley by the Sea property owners, including occupants of rental properties, individuals who own property within Holley by the Sea, no more than 7 residents per lot to include owners, may be approved to use the facility. The The occupants of rental properties with a valid current transfer usage form may have equal rights to the number of usage rights granted to owners, which is 7. The board reserves the right to amend the policy at any time. And then it states the proper identification needed to be provided. As far as other changes, the other main one was that each owner is allotted 36, which is an increase of 6 annually. If the owner uses these 36 annual guest passes, additional guest passes may be purchased at $2 per pass, entitling the owner's guest to 1 per pass. It also kept in there that a caregiver may be allowed to accompany a homeowner, and then of course the document has to be provided that that is indeed a care owner or caregiver for someone maybe who's elderly or rehabilitation, and that caregiver can only come when the person they're giving care to is here. And if any information that is provided in this form proves to be false, the board has the right to suspend or to revoke usage rights. So in other words, if someone says that this person's living in our home and they're actually living in Pensacola, and the board or the association finds out, then the board has the right to revoke or suspend usage rights. That's the gist of it. So what this does is it takes the board and the association out of the business of defining a family, defining age limits. It's up to the homeowner. We came up with 7 because some homes are bigger than others. If we did it by bedroom, well, if we just did 1 per bedroom, that's 3. If you have a family of 5, then that excludes. We wanted to make sure that the rights provided to owners are the same that are provided to renters. And we also wanted to ensure that those who own property but don't have a home have the same rights as the others, because the assessment per the lot is the same. So this takes us out of the business. Now, if someone has a family of 7 and then their in-laws come and live with them or whomever, then they have to choose which individuals residing in that home have usage rights. It's not up to the board, it's up to the individuals within that home, or the owner, if you will. So I will open it up for discussion. Oh, no cheers? All right, I make a
I have a
motion.
question back there. Would you come up here, please?
Yes.
Just to clarify a little bit, and it's for my son. He lives in a house with his significant other. So does he have to make an application to get a pass in here? Or
What he
will
would
this
do,
cover that?
what he would do is he would complete this form and state who's residing within his home.
Okay,
And if
okay.
that
There's a
individual-
form to fill out.
Yes, and he is going to be listing whomever his significant
Sure.
other is, the name, and actually signing
Yeah.
that that person does reside in the home.
Okay, very good. That was the question I had. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, any other comments, questions? All right, I make a motion to move this to Thursday.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is that a what?
That was a no.
That was a no. So the motion was approved 4-1. All right, the second item, policy and procedure for maintenance personnel for keeping drainage areas free of debris. I just wanted to make the board aware and also homeowners aware. I contacted Stephen Furman, who's the director of the Roads and Bridges Department in the county, and asked him if he could, this was about 2 months ago, if he could send us, if there was a way that Holley by the Sea could work with the county in keeping ditches clean. Because one of the issues, and it's just one, the stormwater drainage or flooding that we have is more than just one issue. So I was trying to come up with ways that we could help, if you will, because it is our neighborhood, and I think we need to have a vested interest in it. So I asked him, once a ditch is cleaned, like the county comes out, cleans it, ensures that the water is free flowing, if he could provide those areas to Holley by the Sea, and then Holley by the Sea maintenance staff or the architectural, as they're doing their drives around the area, can go through these areas, and if after a storm they see a limb that's maybe impeding the flow of water, that they just move it. So they're not cleaning the ditches, they're just simply, if they see debris that is there after a storm or something, then they just pick it up and remove it to help maintain those. So I don't necessarily know that it's an issue for the board to decide so much as it was, I wanted to make the board aware of what was going on. And again, it would be the maintenance and architectural staff, and it wouldn't really be anything more. The architectural staff would not be tasked with actually removing it, but as they're doing their drive-bys, if they see something, then they would jot it down and then tell April, who would then inform the maintenance crew to go out and just remove it. So I don't see it as taking, I don't foresee this as taking a lot of time, it's just trying to maintain what the county has done.
I think that's an operational issue, I don't see where that would require more action.
I just wanted to make the board aware of, and the homeowners, so.
Question?
Yes,
Again?
come on up.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Fine, excuse me.
I live on Sandstone Street,
Yes.
7619, and right across the street from me is two culverts underneath sandstone right there. One of them's plugged. Who do we call? Do I call it? Do you call it? Or who cleans it out?
That is the county. The county, you would call the road department.
I need to call the road
Yes, and
department?
they would
Okay.
put in a work order, and I can get you the number after the meeting.
Okay, very
And they
good.
put in a work order, and then they'll come and clean it.
Okay.
No, what we're talking about is once an area is cleaned.
Oh, yeah, I keep my drainage ditch clean.
Can I say something real quick to that too?
Sure.
After you do that, if you get a work order number,
Yep,
okay, let our office know
Okay.
what it is. We'll follow up to make sure it's done,
okay,
okay?
very good.
Right. The next item is decision as to whether late fees and interest are due if payment of association assessment was paid on February 1st, 2016. I think there may have been some misunderstanding with the language. I think the assessment letter that went out was clear that they were due on January 1st with the grace period ending January 31st. There were quite a few who paid on February 1st. So of the 128 members that paid assessments in full on February 1st, including late fees and finance charges, late fee and interest per account equals $4,005.12. We do have 6 requests. That's a different item on the agenda. But the decision here is to whether we are going to waive late fees and interest from those who paid in full on February 1st.
Was it the understanding that we had some kind of system failure too, that people were having difficulty paying by credit card or whatever on Sunday?
No, it was just that there were so many people that were calling in to pay that they had people calling back, people on hold. So that we had a couple of people who called and left voicemails, which those are individually lined out, but saying that, I called to make the payment, but I had to leave a voicemail, or those kinds of things. And those were, in my opinion, different since they were calling to make in. I think that there are a couple of people who heard some of those rumors and have tried to use that to say that they tried to call, and maybe that's not necessarily true. We did not have a full system down on Sunday.
I make a motion to disapprove waiving late fees and interests for those who paid in full on February 1st, with the condition that if an owner wishes to make a hardship request, they need to bring that to the board individually. Open it up for discussion.
Peter Zane, 2861 PGA Boulevard. I would speak in favor of the waiver. Follow the lead of our government. If April 15th falls on a Sunday, the due date is pushed till the next business day, Monday. We're not out here to penalize the members. If they in good faith tried to pay on Sunday, did pay on Monday, I think that's good.
Well, the issue with that, and I understand what you're saying, Pete, is if I am late on April 15th and it falls on a Monday, and then obviously it's a Sunday or Saturday. If the 15th falls on a Sunday, then Monday I pay. But if I wait 30 days, I will be penalized. So, our due date was January 1st, and there were.
I'm just
31
speaking
days.
in favor of the members that did actually pay. that means we don't have to expend any more energy on them.
Well, there were many members who paid it without complaint.
Right.
They understood that
Yeah,
they
we're
were
not
late.
saying that 128 people came forward and said they wanted them all waived. We were just saying if we were looking at waiving any, then we either need to do it by case, or we need to do all or none. So doing the math on that was how many people actually paid on the first, whether they complained or not, in full, and that was 128 people. So, and we are open on Sunday, so Saturday and Sunday.
Yes, and the motion was.
I still stand by my comment.
Well, the motion was to disapprove the blanket waiver, and then if someone wants to request, and when we, like we do have 6 requests at the next item, the members' information is not provided. So when we discuss them, there's no disclosure of who, just the request itself.
The way I understand this number, there were 128 members that paid on the first, and they paid the late fees.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
So they do.
Well, then, we would have to, if we were to do that, if we were to do a blanket or individually, we would have to give 128 refunds.
That's right. We should.
If we were to do it individually,
Yes.
that really adds to the paperwork and the accounting issues.
Well, the 6 that we're gonna be dealing with next are not part of this one.
This, right, this is not part of that. This is- Okay, well, we're moving it.
If, in my mind, if they paid, and knowing, to me, if they paid the finance, they understood what was going on.
I'm gonna make a motion to move this to Thursday.
Second.
All in favor?
Uh,
The next item is the review of hardship requests for 2016 assessments. There are 6. We'll take them item by item. The first one, individual, is late in 2015, also 2016, a total due of $890.18. There is a backstory here, which the board is aware, but he lives in Texas, disabled on fixed income. He allowed his sister to live in the home. She agreed to pay the fees. She did not, so he found out here recently that these fees were not paid. So he is requesting that the late fees and interest be waived.
Are we gonna vote on these individually?
I think we should.
How are we gonna handle that? Are we gonna review them all first, or are we gonna handle them just one?
Individually.
Line item down?
Yeah, we'll line item now. Why am I talking about this word? We will line item each one. So I make a motion to approve this request to waive the late fee and interest for 2015 and 16. Okay?
Well, I'll second it so we can have a vote.
Is the motion was seconded?
Yeah, Steve Peterson, this is just late fees and interest,
Yes.
not any
Not
lien
anything
or
else.
legal fees that we still
When he-
collect any of
when
those,
he was-
if we have any on the account.
When he was made
Or
aware.
or mowing the lawn or any of
No.
those things.
No, the sister lived in the home and the brother was under the understanding that she was paying the assessments. He recently found out that was not the case, he contacted us.
Yeah. My recommendation is I've got no heartburn if you decide to waive late fee and interest, but if we expended money above and beyond the assessment, we ought to collect that.
Right, the house was occupied.
Any other discussion?
My concern was, in looking up some of this information, was he still claiming homestead on the house, which is in violation of state law, which they go after them pretty hard when they find out about it. So, you know, the fact that his sister lived there, that, you know, does not mean he's living there, if he's living in Texas. So, he ultimately, as the owner, is responsible for making whatever payments are to the association, to the mortgage, you know, and it's not up to his sister whether she does it or not, regardless of whether or not they have an agreement.
We can get that information usually,
I've already got it.
well,
For his
Yeah, he
homestead?
looked up the
Yeah.
homestead.
Yeah,
is he,
yes.
I couldn't tell by
On
what,
the county
by
website, it's
the
showing
way
that he
you
is
said
still
what you
homesteading.
said, whether it did or not.
Has that been updated? Is that the recent,
I looked at it when this first came about.
I meant the homestead, was it for 2015?
It's current. The homestead is current, so.
Okay. All right, I withdraw the motion, then I didn't know it, kind of changes
Well,
it.
let's, in order to make things simple, let's make all the motions the same.
Okay,
And then
and then
either
we'll just-
approve
gotcha.
them one way or the other.
All right, so the motion was to approve, the motion to move this to
The
Thursday?
motion was to waive. Let's go, do you wanna go ahead and just clear this off the table?
We can do it now.
I mean, is anybody having
Yes.
trouble with that?
Because we have that presentation Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so the motion to approve waiving the interest and late fees for the homeowner who lives in Texas. All in favor? Nay?
Nay.
Nay.
All right, the next one, 2016 owed only, he owes 2016 only. He did not pay late fees and finance charges. He did pay the full amount in full on February 1st. He stated that his daughter-in-law was having surgery due to complications, and he was in Atlanta. So he is requesting to waive late fees and finance charges. In order to keep it consistent, I will make a motion to approve the request to waive the late fee and finance charges of $31.29.
Second motion for discussion.
So discussion of this.
Is he part of the 128?
No. Well, he paid in full, but he didn't pay the interest because he wanted to request that the interest and late fee be waived. But he did pay the $425 on February 1st.
So no, he's not a part of the 128, because the 128 is people who paid the assessment, late
Gotcha.
fees, and the interest.
I would suggest we move that to Thursday until we vote on the 128.
No, I made a mistake. He's not part of the 128.
Yeah, that vote.
He paid in full on February 1st, but he's requesting,
He paid his assessment in
He
full.
didn't
he
pay
paid his
anything.
assessment in
Late
full,
fee.
not the late fee and interest.
I have a problem with it personally because, like you stated, we all have grace period.
Right.
When was the surgery? How long was he there? I honestly need a little more information as far as that goes, or did, because if she had surgery, let's say January 15th, and then he's using that as an excuse not to have come in until the 1st. Not saying that that's the case, but
We just don't know.
I'd rather have more information if we're gonna go that way with him, or anybody.
And I see him as part of the 128, even though he didn't pay, it's still the same.
Right, that's fine.
Well, no, it's not, because the 128 is those who paid the assessment in full and the late fee and interest. He paid his assessment, but not
Then
the
he
late
wants us
fee
to
and
waive
interest.
the late fee.
How many do that? By the way, do we know?
How many did this?
Yeah.
Only him on this sheet. He's the only one who only paid the assessment, did not pay late fees and interest.
The reason he had to go to, his daughter-in-law was having pregnancy complications, and I did not ask, I asked how she was, and she lost the child, so I don't know at what point within the month that we went there, I didn't ask.
I understand,
So
but
I
I'm just-
understand what you're saying, but I didn't.
I get why we wouldn't ask, but it's the whole, we have that grace period for a reason, and I understand there are other issues, but it's just something that I feel that if we're gonna do it across the board for other people, we should be consistent.
Okay. All right, so all in favor of waiving the 3129?
Okay.
Opposed?
All opposed? Aye.
Why didn't we vote in favor and opposed? Why didn't we?
Well, because he said all opposed. All right, the next one, husband left, she paid the total amount for 2016. She is requesting that the late fee and interest be paid as the aforementioned, as the previous one. Her husband left, she's trying to handle all the bills by herself. She works at a local retail store and only has retirement pay from her service. So if I understand correctly, she paid the $425 on Monday.
She paid it all. Late fees and interest and assessment.
So she paid the total amount, including the late fees and interest, and she's asking that the late fee and interest be waived. And then obviously refund it to her.
Then she's one of the 128.
She's one of the 128.
Well, she's not included in the 128 because I had to
So
separate them.
128.
None of the 128 asked for a waive of late fees and finance charges.
Something we're doing.
But she did the same thing,
Yeah, she
except
paid.
she's asked for it.
Exactly.
Now initially with this one, she had called or emailed, I called, left a message, and, then that Monday, when I called her again, and she at first wanted to make payments. I told her she needed to speak with Ray, and then she came in and she just paid it in full. So, make a motion to deny?
Are we changing our motion now? The motion
Make
to
a
waive.
motion to approve.
To approve. All in favor of approving? No?
No.
No.
So, who was the second on that?
I was,
Okay.
All right, 2016 dues are owed. He's out of work due to broken arm, will not receive check until end of February. He's, this is the one that has the payment plan. And he's requesting the waiving of the late fee and interest. I make a motion to approve, waiving the late fee and interest. Discussion?
I second it.
Thank you. All right, all in favor of approving? All opposed? Aye. The next one, this homeowner receives an annual check in February. They will pay in full by February 31st. The backstory with this one is, number one, they've never been late with their assessments, and they get an annual check, and it usually comes in January. For this year, there's something with what their retirement is, and so it will be coming in February. So I make a motion to approve waiving the late fee and interest.
I'll second it.
I am in favor of approving this one simply because they've never been late. They reached out to us several months ago, telling us that they would be, what their situation is, and that they would not get their annual check until February, and that they would pay it upon receipt. And for me, looking at the fact that they've never been late.
I would be in favor of doing that as long as we get something stating that if they do not pay it by the 31st, that is waived, that they do have to pay the late fees and everything.
How would this relate to Catchman?
They would go to Catsman if they don't pay it by February 31st.
How about February 29th?
Oh, would they have, like, 90 days or something?
Well, no, everything is turned over on March 1st, so if they pay by the 31st, then.
How about February
Oh,
29th?
there isn't a 31st.
29th, you're right, no, there is a 29th.
Yeah, the 31st.
Wow.
That was a good.
That's a good. There you go. Yeah, we're doing pretty well. That's actually March 31st.
Well, I tend to agree with that.
Yeah. I
You know,
remember
they
them.
made an effort to let us know.
Yeah, I remember them reaching out early on this.
Like I said, I'm in favor of it as long as it is done by the 29th.
Well, if it's not, then you need to catch it.
Make a motion to amend the motion to waive the late fee and interest if paid in full by the February 29th. If paid after February 29th, late fee and interest will apply. And it will be sent to Catsman and Carpenter.
I second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, this next one is a little, it's a little long. So there's a family member who received a delinquency letter and called Holley by the Sea to find the balance of what is owed. The family member, who is a child, was unaware that the assessment had not been paid since 2011. His parents divorced in 2010. The mother, I guess part of the agreement was that the husband would pay the mortgage and the assessments. The mother thought that's what was happening. Come to find out, that was not what was happening. So no assessment had been paid since 2011. The other son, who's in the military and deployed, he wanted to pay the debt off to his mom. And so he called today and he paid the full $3,650.48 that was owed. That included the interest and the late fee. So the way this breaks down is the assessments came to $2,229. The interest fees came to $1,211.48, and the late fee came to $175. So before I make the motion, I'm just gonna make a motion. I make a motion to approve waiving the late fee and waiving half the interest fees. Because, so that's my motion.
One second.
The reason I make that motion is, why do you take so bad habit of talking to that stupid thing, it's not even working. So, my reason for that is, I understand it is the homeowner's responsibility to pay this. Through no fault of the son, the assessments were not paid. In order to help his mom and to clear the account, he called and made the payment in full. And so therefore, we would essentially be penalizing him. So I don't want to waive the entirety of the late fee or the interest, but half of it. So waive the late fee, which is $175, and then waive half of the interest, which would be refunded to him. And the interest to be waived, so let me, it'll be six, let me get the total.
$605.
$605 plus the $175, so it would be $780. And what was the change?
I didn't do anything.
So we would essentially be waiving $780.
And he set her up on a payment plan.
And that's right, thank you. And he set her up on a payment plan so that this does not happen again. So that her payment for 2017 will actually be paid before it's due. So the total would be $780.74. Yes.
He was in a comment, you have confirmed that 2011 paperwork tasked former spouse. They're not just telling a story.
Did I confirm that it went to the husband?
No, that there was a written settlement agreement.
No, I didn't ask for their divorce.
Oh, okay,
Agreement.
so they,
We saw the change of ownership form though that came through the accounting office.
right, but you haven't confirmed that there was something written that said the former spouse was responsible for the assessments,
We just saw that he was responsible for the mortgage.
but you didn't see anything written that he was responsible for the assessments, okay.
Alright, so all in favor of waiving $780.74? Aye.
No.
4 to 1, approved. Next agenda item is the two lots that are owned by Holley by the Sea, Lot 19 Rexford and Lot 7 on Boysburg. I make a motion to sell the lots. Alright, discussion? Make a motion to move this to Thursday. All in favor? Aye. Alright, the next one deals with the Emerald Coast Wildlife Refuge request to waive usage fee at beach house for event is. Oh, sorry. Yes, I'm skipping the most important one, sorry.
Sorry, not yet.
That'd be nice.
Just making sure you're awake. Alright, the next one, this is the most important one, I think, on the agenda. Meeting date for the covenant threshold and incentive. Alright, the motion. There's two parts to this. There's the actual proxy and then or approving the wording of the proxy and then the incentive portion. So the first part. I make a motion to approve the proxy for the special owners meeting with changes from legal counsel.
Is this the changed document? And I have a copy of it.
You have a highlight on the front, of yours? You should have that.
Where?
There was one in your box.
I didn't have one in my box.
Here.
Here, Rod, here. Here.
That's all right.
No,
Yeah,
I-
there's one here.
The changes do not change the intent or what's being asked, it's just the language is tightened up, if you will. So the item number 1 on the proxy would state, a resolution adopting a proposed amendment must be approved by 2/3 supermajority of the entire standing board of directors and by not less than 2/3 supermajority of a minimum 25% voting response from the entire voting interest of the membership of the association.
Well, I second the motion.
Right, the second one, he lined out a majority and added 2/3 supermajority for clarification. He lined out 1 in section 2, subsection A, and replaced it with not less than 2/3 supermajority of the entire standing members of the board of directors and by not less than 2/3 of the minimum 25% voting response from the entire voting interest of the membership of the association. And then he lined out the last sentence in 2B.
Okay, I'm right here. I got it there.
We just got this today, so
Well, we're not gonna make a decision till Thursday. We may want further discussion on Thursday after we've had time to read it.
but the changing of the language doesn't change.
I believe I'm the only covenants committee person here in case you have any questions, but I probably will not be here Thursday.
I have a question. Can you please speak about the,
Can you come up here, Patricia, so we can hear? So I can hear it.
Patricia Hall, 2792 Camden. Can you please speak about, which is in our neighborhood paper, changing the residential vehicle policy?
Something to be addressed. We have no,
Oh.
right now, the residential vehicle parking, the boats, trailers, RVs, yada, 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 are being handled by a permit. That's a big process. If in the future, we would be able to have the members vote on actually, instead of having a permit process, just put those same rules into the covenants so that every board doesn't come along and change them.
So you're not trying to change that we don't allow commercial vehicles parked?
No, no.
Okay.
That's whatever would be developed in the future. These are just areas that the committee said, were clear, the 1972 covenants as amended are clearly out of step with current desires. I mean, a couple, 3 years ago, we had town hall meetings on parking of boats, vehicles, RVs, campers, trailers, and came up with a set of rules that are the guidelines to issue the long-term parking permits for that. Possibly in the future, when if we can get by this so that we can actually have votes of the membership, if they approve that, it could be actually placed in the covenants, which would make it so that every board doesn't come along and change it.
And new homeowners would know what it was.
And it'd be in the covenants, not just in policies. And there are several other areas, things like the homeowner usage, the homeowner, renter, property owner usage, instead of being a policy, could be in the covenants, so that again, it makes it harder to change if it's in the covenants than if it's a board policy, which can be changed with each new board. In fact, the same board could change their own policy. So that's and these were areas that we know are problems. I'm sure there's 2 or 3 times that many
Those were examples.
Those are examples.
Yes.
I mean, another one out there is somebody said in the first 15 pages, there's 36 references to the subdeveloper, the subdivider. Those could be all removed because we no longer have a subdivider that has any powers over us.
Because so right now, Patricia, it's very, very difficult to amend the covenants in order to tighten the language, to address these problematic areas, because it requires such a supermajority of the members to vote on any proposed amendment. So in order to allow for us to have a feasible threshold that is high enough so that the amendments can't be changed on a whim, but low enough so that we can amend them to tighten up this language, such as he said, and those were just examples. These are areas that could be tightened up within the covenants, and then of course those areas would go back out to the members for a vote. But before we can do that, this amendment is going to be proposed. So just lowering that threshold so that it's high enough so that it can't be changed on a whim, but low enough so that it can actually be reached. And the committee, again, did a phenomenal job on getting that number.
Yeah, and again, it's just based on the current threshold is far in excess of what anybody votes in county elections and state elections as far as a percentage. This brings us more in line with voting patterns, where I think the most we've ever had anybody vote here is around 1,500 at one time. So, requiring 3,000, 3,500 people to vote to pass anything just is unrealistic.
And this comes out to, if I recall, about 891, 900 around.
Yeah, the response has to be around 1,200, and it would be 2/3 of 1,200, so it's over 800. Which, and again, if it's somebody high, hopefully, 2,000 or 3,000 people will vote, and it still requires 2/3 of them if 3,000 people vote on that particular thing, if creates enough interest.
And Patricia, this policy, or this change to the covenant, will have to meet the current standards.
Right.
Okay, so you're not gonna get the commercial
So-
vehicles in there?
So
No, correct.
this right here has to pass
That's just
with
an
the
example.
existing.
Okay.
Examples of what.
Yeah, the policy to change the covenants has to meet the old standard to
Right.
pass, to become effective, so that we can lower that threshold. So the push is gonna be, that's what the meeting will be for and the proxy for, is to allow that to happen. And that'll have to meet the old threshold of 51% or.
Yeah. We
All
need
this is dealing with
2,400
is
affirmative votes.
the number of votes required to amend the Constitution. That's all this is dealing with.
Correct, I just thought that his committee was trying to
No.
change.
No, they were giving
dynamics.
examples. If this passes, then these are these other issues that can be addressed.
Yeah, and it's
If
just
there's
5 or
desire
6
to.
examples of 20 or 30 things that over time should be addressed an item or two at a time.
Can other things be addressed besides the issue that you're talking about in 5 or 6?
Yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah.
again, those are just examples.
Yeah.
So going forward, we need to lower the amount of homeowners to approve a change to the covenant.
Yes.
Yes, but this amendment still has to pass, and it has to meet the current
I
threshold.
understand that.
It's the same percentage, it's just a lower number of people to actually vote. So it was 2/3 before, right, but it was 2/3 at a certain amount,
No, it was 51% before.
51%,
So-
but you
so-
had to have.
So, but
Of the total membership.
of the total membership, this requires 2/3 of a portion of the total membership, but a very significant
Actually, it
portion.
was 50% plus one person.
And we
Depends
suffer
upon,
from
it depends
terrible
upon if you're in the
voter
bylaws or the other, bylaws say
Bylaws.
51%.
Can we review the corrections or additions prior to you guys voting on that? There's some lines.
And it doesn't change the meaning, it's just the way it was just reworded, but absolutely, because this won't be voted on until Thursday.
So
Right,
just to be 100% clear, this is only a vote to change the threshold. There is no other agenda here. There is nothing else being changed except for the threshold.
Correct.
Yes,
That's it.
that's it.
The idea being anything else would, in the future, town hall meetings, process, that kind of stuff.
All right, make a motion to move this Thursday? On favor? All right. All right, the second item that has to do with the proxy, I think it was very clever of the committee. They recommended providing an incentive for voter turnout. As we all know, just an example within Santa Rosa County, I think the highest voter turnout was probably 24%. The Navarre area generally hovers around 12–13% of voter turnout just to vote for presidential elections, county commissioners. So, and then voter turnout for Holley by the Sea Board of Directors is even lower. So I don't know why people are so apathetic about their right to vote and participate, because it does affect them, who represents them, affects their lives. However, that's not the issue at hand. The issue is a way to get people to vote. So the incentives that we will discuss are not, you have to vote yes or you have to vote no. It's just to return a completed proxy. That's it. That's all it does, okay? So we're not buying votes because we're not telling people how to vote, okay? It's just a way to get people to possibly, because human nature is what it is, and if they have an incentive, then they're more likely to respond. And so one of the incentives was to offer $10 off the next assessment, or offer a $10 credit to the 2017 assessment. We had the attorney look at this to ensure that that's something that we can do. He said that he didn't see any problem with the board taking such an action for a $10 to be applied to the assessment or any service. So maybe someone doesn't want the $10 to be applied to the assessment. Maybe they want $10 to be applied to
locker fee,
the beach house, rental, or a locker fee, or a something like that. So that is what we're going to discuss. So in order to have a discussion, I make a motion to approve a $10 credit toward service of members' choice. Or I know, but we have to discuss it first.
Oh.
So I have to make the motion. So the motion is to approve a $10 credit toward the assessment or service that the homeowner chooses. Discussion.
and I will speak to the nexus of this idea. We need to go all out to try to get past this hurdle. And from, at least I'll speak personal experience, I go into Lowe's, I buy something, and they say, if you go online and fill this out, we'll put you in the hopper for $5,000 credit. I don't even bother with it. But when I go into Whataburger and they say, if you fill out our survey, we'll send you a coupon for a free Whataburger, that's guaranteed. If I fill out the survey, I'll get a Whataburger, I'll get something. And we figure $10 is pretty good compensation for somebody spending 10 minutes to actually return the proxy. Whether they vote yes or no, again, is, the credit will be completely separated with how you vote, just that you did return a proxy.
Yes.
And that's just the incentive, is that everybody who takes the time to do it will, get benefit. Whether it'll work or not, we don't know.
And it's something that, like for me, I wouldn't even claim the $10 because I just believe in voting. So to me, I don't have to be given a $10 credit. I would just vote.
Yeah, but there's
there's
a lot of people out there that don't vote.
All right, John, bring it.
I was gonna be quiet, but. I couldn't stand it. John Walden, 2714 PGA Boulevard.
You're a McDonald's guy, aren't you?
No, I'm not. But I am opposed to spending $47,000 just to get people to vote. That's what you're talking about.
Well, you're assuming that everybody would take the $10 credit to the assessment. It could be something like a locker fee.
Okay, make it $2,500, $25,000 if 2,500 people go. If the bottom line of the whole thing.
If we're going to talk numbers, let's do it. What is $10 for
47,000.
$47,000.
Okay. And if you get 2,500 people to vote, it's $25,000. You're not talking about chump change. You're talking about serious money here.
Just raise the assessment $10.
Well, you can do that too. I think if the community really wants to do this, then they ought to work at it. I mean, when they wanted to do a recall, people stood out here and got people to sign, people working the desk passed out forms for people to sign. People stood out at the front entrance to get people to give votes. I mean, come on, I just am opposed to just, let's give somebody $10 and hope they vote. I'm opposed to it.
Any other comments?
I was born and raised in Chicago. I don't like this muff grab.
It's not a turkey? Do we need to give him a turkey?
I know when it came up, I understand the intent, I understand that, but I'm of the mind, if people are gonna vote, they're gonna vote, and we need to do our work. If we want it, we need to do our work.
Question is for April. Say the whole $47,000 is used for assessments. What is that gonna put us in the red for this year?
$47,000.
No, this would be for next year's
Well,
assessment.
well, I mean, we talked about the budget and how last year's budget wasn't met, so if you're offering that, what's gonna happen to our budget?
Well, it would obviously have to be, it would have to be line item in the budget. We can't hide that number somewhere. So I'm not saying that the assessment would be raised or lowered because we don't know what the expenses look like. You know, even with this year's budget, we had to add in $100,000 for an erosion project. Well, that's gonna be fixed. So 2017, I don't see that money being on the 2017 budget, so there's $100,000 that we should not have to spend in 2017 that we had to spend in 2016. But I can't say until we go through this year's budget project what other things may be on the budget.
Were you included in this $10 discussion?
I was.
Thank you.
You want to know what my opinion of it was?
Yes.
I was not for giving back the money necessarily. I was for giving an incentive to apply it towards maybe a trash pickup or a lawn mow or something that we could do in-house. That wouldn't be money back necessarily to anyone, but a service that we could provide a member if they turned it in.
About Whataburger.
I bet we could find local retailers that would give things.
As far as president, I do recall, Pete Peter Zane again, I do recall 5 years ago or so, when I participated in some trash pickups, everybody that participated got a credit for child care or something like that. I can't remember what it was for, but they got a credit for an in-house service. And that was just for picking up trash. I think, my opinion is the lack of currency of covenants is so bad that even if it was 47,000, could save us hundreds of thousands over the next 10 years in reinventing the wheel and reinterpreting the covenants every year and changing the policies with every board, because that all costs money too. So I personally think it's a good investment if we're successful.
Hi, Pete, I never got that incentive.
Well, you were on the wrong trash pickup day. Well, another one was like I got barbecue lunch one day when we picked up trash too.
Yes, we did.
So, motion was second, so make a motion to move this to Thursday.
A second.
All in favor? Aye. I vote aye so that we can vote up or down on the issue. Aye.
So it's
It's 4-1.
4-1, it's good.
The next one, Emerald Coast Wildlife Trust.
Hey, thank you for your time tonight. I'm Colonel Retired Bill Anderson, United States Air Force. I'm currently serving as the Vice President on the board of the Emerald Coast Wildlife Refuge. It's a pleasure to meet you all too. I appreciate you letting me come talk to you tonight. I also appreciate your service on the board as a guy who sits a couple boards. I understand your workload, and I understand your frustrations about getting lack of vote for important decisions, so I appreciated that discussion. Emerald Coast Wildlife Refuge, in a nutshell, does rescue, rehabilitation, and release of injured, orphaned, for sick wildlife on the 5 Gulf Coast counties. In our community, Santa Rosa County being one of them. It's an organization that's entirely manned by volunteers with the exception of 10 paid staff members, 2 of which are veterinarians. The rest of them are trained animal care specialists. And it is funded entirely through donations, private donations. We receive no government money. It's all donations and grants from charitable and private individuals. So I'm a longtime property owner here in Holley by the Sea. As a matter of fact, my wife and I just celebrated our 20th anniversary. We had our wedding reception back at our old beach house that, as you know, got blown away. So talking with April, one of the things we have to do as a nonprofit is the continuing quest for fundraising, as you might imagine, based upon the scenario I just described you, being totally funded through donations. This past fall in November, I hosted at my condo out on the beach a in-house, they call it a house party. It was a jazz concert. Scott Kosu, the Windham Hill artist, jazz pianist. Okay, so we have some jazz fans. He came and played in my condo for 40 participants who then donated to the Emerald Coast Wildlife Refuge. We've outgrown my condo with those 40 participants. That was a first-time event. We plan on doing it again this coming November. I wanted to come see if the beach house would be suitable for that type of activity. Certainly from our perspective it would be. We envision perhaps doubling the event up to 80. If we got 100, boy, that would be something. Clearly me as the property owner would be responsible for the facility, the deposits, all those type of things. But what I had asked April is if the board would consider, since it is a non-profit tax exempt community support institution, if the board would consider waiving the rental fee for the beach house that night.
Do you know the date that you're wanting to reserve it?
Either November 5th or 12th, which is open. We would prefer the 5th, but clearly we'll have to be flexible based upon.
Is that a Saturday?
Is it a Friday or a Saturday, April? I can't remember.
I believe they're Saturdays.
Saturday.
Saturday, what's the rental fee?
This lady mentioned local realtors donating things to support the refuge. They do indeed do that. We had a silent auction this past event that I was describing at my place. We raised about $6,000 for that event, but it's part of the event itself. It's kind of done at the halftime. You know, people have bid sheets, and then at the halftime when the musician takes a break, we turn off the bidding, and then at the end of the event, we announce the winning bids.
And you would pay the deposit?
That's true.
We have it, you know, they're broken down in different time blocks. We have 4 throughout the course of the day. The full day is $265.
For the rental fee.
We can do it.
All right, I make a motion to approve waiving the $265 for the Emerald Coast Wildlife Refuge.
Sure.
Any discussion?
How much are the tickets to the event?
This past year, they were $75 a head. We plan on, since the attendance we hope will go up with a bigger venue, we'll lower the ticket prices, but all of the proceeds went 100% to animal care. So I would like to get our tickets down in the $60 range. With y'all's permission, and I'll have to talk to April about whose permission that is, it would be nice, since this is part of the community that the refuge supports, for me to be able to invite the Holley by the Sea community to this event. To enjoy the jazz or whatever artist it ends up being, and secondly, to support the refuge. And furthermore, I've talked to April, and if you guys would give this some consideration, as we do support this community, and I did my last pickup here in Holley by the Sea about 5 weeks ago, a great blue heron who was entrapped in some fishing line. We survive on volunteers. I know you mentioned town hall meetings. If you have any social events, we have animal ambassadors, which is wildlife that's too injured, even if we are able to save them, heal them, to be released back in the wild. We do presentations to schools, community activities. We'd love to come to a Holley by the Sea event, let people know what the Emerald Coast Wildlife Refuge is, bring some of our animal ambassadors out, let folks interact with them, and really get some exposure and name recognition out here in one of the communities the refuge supports.
Well, we can get with you, because I don't see a problem with something with the lawn care, you know, like a pre-workshop, if you will.
Fantastic.
Where, you know, we can get with some dates and have it spring or summer, yeah, I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah, we have a big community here, I bet there's a lot, we see the interest in wildlife, I bet there's a volunteer pool here that I hadn't thought to tap frankly until, being elected to this position.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so,
You wanna go ahead and vote on it since it's here?
sure.
Wait,
So all in favor of waiving the 265?
go ahead, and then there'll be discussion.
No, we've already made the
vote on it,
decision.
so.
Go ahead.
Go, John.
Go ahead.
Motion's already been made.
Okay. I'm sure this is a great organization, and it's fine if you wanna go ahead and do that, but remember one thing. If you say that one nonprofit organization that happens to have a member that belongs to this association can use that facility at no charge because they're nonprofit, you're opening the door for every other nonprofit organization that a member here belongs to.
Well, he's not just a member, but you're the, what is your title?
I'm the vice president of the ECW.
So
That's
he's-
irrelevant. What's relevant
I
is,
wouldn't say it's irrelevant, Tom.
what's relevant is you have an organization that's asking to use our facility.
And he is a member.
And he's a member. What, if you allow that, every other member that belongs to a similar type organization, a nonprofit organization, Cancer Society, who knows what, okay? I'm just saying, if you do that, you're gonna have to give anybody else that wants to do what this gentleman would like to do the same
Well, it
consideration.
just says that the late fees and the interest is a case by case. So if another nonprofit wants to present their request to the board would discuss it and vote on it.
I'm saying you can do whatever you want. I'm saying, once you open the door, it's open for any nonprofit that's run, that a member here belongs to.
I understand. Thank you.
I just want to tell a quick story and say that I think that what John says has some merit, but I believe that a strong case could be made that what this guy is doing is also, especially if the Holley by the Sea group is, if we're as members aware of this, it's a service to our community. It's not just any not-for-profit. During one of the hurricanes on Sunrise, we watched a baby eagle be blown out of a tree, held onto a twig, and I went to the zoo and tried to take it, and they wouldn't take it. I ended up finding the fish and wildlife guy at the fire station that happened to be there to take it. But had I known there was an organization like this, I would have known where I could have taken the animal. So I think there's a community service component to this that, to me as a member, I feel like there's a value in allowing an organization that could communicate important information out to our community to do something like that.
Thank you, John. Any other comments?
Again, great organization, but I believe if you start this road, you need to have a policy, kind of which nonprofits, under what circumstances would be favorably entertained. I had just one-on-one discussed with Yvonne when the county residential horticultural extension agent was looking for a venue here in South County to give a lawn care workshop, much like Skip Forth, which was going to be open to the public, and was looking at the beach house, and it looked like there was not enough time to do that. But you do this, are you gonna favorably look at the county residential horticultural extension agent in the future? You're going to look favorably if I'm a member of the board of the Panhandle Butterfly House. We look for venues to have fundraisers. Would we be favorably considered? Navarre Crew of Jesters as a community organization that I'm a member of. I live in Holley by the Sea. We look for venues to have fundraisers and functions. Would we also be favorably considered?
Not the crew of jesters, Pete. What's drinking going on?
He said he was gonna have a bar.
He did indeed.
This is gonna sound strange, I'll put it in this way, if I can. I have a nonprofit that I'm part of, you know, that I paid the fee to use, you know, for training and such. Kind of make a deal with it. I would propose that we take the motion off the table, and I will pay your fee.
Very generous.
My daughter's getting married soon.
I'm
That
very
is-
ready, that's okay.
That is very generous, it is.
But I would.
I know a good minister for
because-
that.
And the reason I say that is I agree with John and Pete on something like this. So I'd like to take that motion off because I think that needs to be consistent. You know, like I said, as a member of another nonprofit, you know, we did the same, you know, and we paid, and I think that has to be consistent. But at the same time, they're really good.
I agree.
And she would like to take care of it.
I could take off my vice president hat for a second and have my property owner hat.
Then I withdraw the motion.
I will tell you that I think supporting our nonprofits and our community service organizations are a critical part of what we need to do as a community, not just Holley by the Sea, but the Navarre area as a whole. The folks that have been associated with nonprofits, I think, know the struggles that nonprofits go through, especially ones with such an extensive mission as what the ECWRs has here in our Gulf Coast communities. So I guess my challenge, and again, thank you for the gracious offer. We will follow up on that if that's the way it comes out. I would challenge the board to indeed develop a policy, because I will come back next year, I'm sure, with the same request, unless we've outgrown it for this year, because every dollar we raise that we don't spend goes directly to animal care. And the gentleman's Fish and Wildlife example with the baby eagle, that animal was turned over to the Emerald Coast Wildlife Refuge, since we're the organization of record here to care for orphan wildlife, and we're the only organization doing such in Santa Rosa. So thank you.
Yes, business card?
I don't. I'm so new in my elected position, they're still at the printer, but I will make sure that we share contact information before we leave. Thank you.
But to answer John's and Pete's questions or their concerns, you know, the beach house is used roughly a third of the time. And the other 2/3 of the time, it just sits there vacant. And if, you know, Holley by the Sea can give back to the community by helping out like that, you know, had it come to a vote, I would have supported it 100%.
Kevin, understand, I wasn't complaining about that, but we need to have a consistent policy is what I said. I said, you guys could do whatever you want as far as this gentleman is concerned. I'm just saying, you're basically saying what I was saying, which is if we're gonna do it, we need to have some kind of a policy that says, that is our new policy, we're going to encourage community outreach, if you will. But that should be something that we decide as a policy.
And that's something we can.
I have to say, after 32 years as a park ranger, I couldn't vote against that.
I wouldn't, I was going to support as well, but Skip, thank you so much. That's such a generous offer for you to make, and we appreciate that. So, we'll draft something that we can bring back to the board for next month's meeting regarding this. And thank you very much for coming tonight. All right, the next item is Woodlawn Beach ROV remotely operated vehicle request for the use of pool for its practice. So, Donna Chatwell is a non-member. However, the Woodlawn Beach Middle School has an ROV program, remotely operated vehicles. They build these and then they compete at a local, district, state level, and a national. They're looking for a place to practice their remote vehicle and pool. They'll be practicing for competition coming up. They would like to use the family pool for 1 hour a week on Tuesdays from 1:45 to 2:45, and they get out of school at about 1:15, so that falls in line with their school schedule. They would be using the family pool, so this would not interfere with any lap swimming, so this would be outside. There are 11 participants, 6 are Holley by the Sea members, and they are aware that they must, the others must fall under the 6 guest passes to include the teacher, so Ms. Chatwell. And they would use it in March and April on Tuesday from 1:45 to 2:45. So I make a motion to approve this request. I'll second it. All right, motion to, any discussion? All right, motion to move this to Thursday.
Second.
Okay, that brings us to the open forum membership discussion. Members wish to, all right, I make a motion to adjourn.
27.
Darn it.
Saying that it's July. I had called the county to come in, send the prisoners out, pick up the litter on Sunrise, Edgewood, and Coral. So if you all see prisoners, that's
You.
why.
It's your fault.
Sorry.
Here come my
When we see him,
emails.
it's your fault.
Yeah, that's.
Everybody knows, these are low level crimes, these are
Yes.
not murderers, rapists.
No.
Been doing it for years.
So anyway.
What?
Thank you.
I do get them.
All right, make motion to adjourn?
Okay.